So without stomach acid, you can't break down protein and B12. You can't get a bunch of other nutrients, but B12 and protein are huge because they're just harder to break down. So we need stronger stomach acid. If we don't have magnesium, we can't activate the protein, which is like the pretty much the first step of metabolism, or the first step of methylation, which is the first step of metabolism, in my opinion, at least. And if we don't have sodium, potassium, and calcium, magnesium doesn't function right. Because an interesting way to look at magnesium is if it were a boat and a boat needs water to float in, and water needs something like a canal or a river. But in this example, we're going to use a canal because, we can kind of like remove that since it's man made. Not remove it, but imaginatively remove it. So if we have a hole in the ground that we call a canal, that's like sodium. And if we fill it with water, that's kind of like potassium. And if we put boats in it, that's kind of like magnesium. And if we carry products with the boats from one place to another, that's kind of like the calcium. Obviously, these things don't work in our body like that because we don't have boats. But if we don't have one of these, like if we're missing the sodium, there's no boats to float. So the other thing doesn't work. So we can have a pile of boats, but if there's no canal and there's no water in the canal, then it doesn't matter. And if there's no products to carry, it's kind of pointless to keep all these boats afloat. It's so at this point, if we don't have stomach acid and our electrolytes, like why bother? There's really nothing going on. There's nothing to do. Sodium lets nutrients into the cell. Potassium lets toxins out. Magnesium and calcium help transmit information and stuff. Magnesium's activating protein, so it can be SAMe. If we go look up what SAMe does, or S-adenosylmethionine or something like that, it makes our neurotransmitters and stuff. So our dopamine and our serotonin and our epinephrines, and it also gets into melatonin, and this is where our COMT gene is, and our MAOA and MAOB and all that stuff. And if we don't have our glucuronidation system running, our COMT can't break these things down, so we're just stuck with dirty transmitters, which probably doesn't feel good, I would have to imagine. That's why some people feel amazing with CDG and have energy. Obviously, we don't want to just gobble down these nutrients without understanding what they're doing or supporting the rest of the system, but there are times that some of these nutrients can be extremely beneficial, and as long as we don't consume a crapload of them, we'll probably be okay. It's kind of similar to like alcohol or food or anything. The whole moderation thing that everybody talks about with all the toxic stuff. Maybe if we just consume things in moderation, we'll get by. After the whole biopterin system with the dopamines and all that stuff, we have what's called SAH, kind of like SAM, the SAM or SAMe thing. It goes into the biopterin as SAM or SAMe, and it comes out as SAH. This ends up running our adenosine. This is what regulates our breathing and heartbeat and stuff. This area here probably has to do with chest palpitations and anxiety. If we push too hard on one spot and we can't clean up whatever is going on with the rest of the nutrients, then we have an imbalance, and we're going to feel it. Our urea cycle also goes through here. So, like ammonia breakdown and uric acid, with the whole gout situation, this kind of gets into oxalates and stuff. Now, once we're done with the SAH, we have homocysteine. Some people know that elevated or low homocysteine is a problem. Homocysteine itself isn't really the issue. It's the fact that we're not generating enough of what I've already talked about, or we're not able to break down homocysteine the way it needs to be. Homocysteine is recycled back into protein, which is also called methionine. That's what we might see labeled on these diagrams. It's methionine instead of protein. You can just call it protein. Makes more sense. MTHFR gene and folate and B12 recycle homocysteine back into methionine. Some people are trying to bypass this with methylfolate and methyl B12. I don't think that's a good idea. I think we should probably focus on something like folinic acid first, which is the supplemental version of folate, not folic acid, because that's a synthetic version, and it's oxidized and it's bad and it sticks to our brain receptors and it's hard for our body to process, and it's linked to a bunch of problems if we take too much of it. If you ever see benefits from folic acid, just assume the proper forms of folate and ignore folic acid, and if you ever see a product with it, I I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I wouldn't consume it. Um, and So when we eat these basic forms, we allow our body to do what it wants at its own rate. Our problem with methylation is likely not a lack of MTHFR activity, it's probably a lack of MTHFR demand, which is why when a lot of people supplement methyls, they might feel better for a little bit at first, but they eventually get into anxiety and restlessness and panic and all types of other things. And most of them don't even realize it's the methyls. And more people are starting to catch on to it now that people are sharing that they get anxiety from methyls more than anything else. So another route that we can recycle homocysteine back into protein is through the BHMT gene. That's kind of sometimes considered the secondary wheel of methylation for some reason. I don't know how folate and B12 were considered the main ones, because if we don't get enough choline, betaine, and glycine to run this other wheel, we end up with too much SAH, and we don't want to make more SAMe. And if we get into that position, B12 and MTHFR have no reason to run. So injecting B12 or consuming methyl B12 or methylfolate or whatever doesn't make any sense at this point, when we actually need more choline, betaine, and glycine to get that other part of the wheel running so we can balance the SAH and SAM or SAM or whatever. Words are difficult. So once we run this, what I've talked about so far well enough, we make enough homocysteine that we can now spill it down to our glutathione. And as it does that, it breaks pieces off, because, these things, we're using certain compounds, not the whole entire thing. We we need other nutrients to get these things out, or else the whole system backs up. So while we're breaking the cysteine down to glutathione, we are generating sulfites, which need to be broken down to sulfates via metabolism or molybdenum. And while we're doing this, we're creating taurine and we're breaking down oxalates. So people are getting stuck on oxalates being a problem and not focusing on anything that I've talked about so far, or molybdenum. And when this process actually does run well, we create PAPs, which goes back to the biopterin system. And another piece I meant to mention was next to CDG, when we're breaking down our COMT stuff, we're with sulforaphane, we can send some of this energy to our sulfur line, which is where I was just at talking about the molybdenum stuff. And then some of that is sent back. So these things that are intertwined all over the place, which is why we can't really just focus on one of them and ignore the rest of them. After that line runs and we continue sending the stuff down to glutathione, we hit a gene that has like a negative feedback loop if we have mold. And this makes it a bit more important to supplement these areas of glutathione. There's people out there that are like, you don't want to supplement glutathione because your body wants to make it and it's bad. Yeah, you don't want to supplement glutathione all day for the rest of your life, but I've benefited greatly by supplementing small amounts of glutathione over the years. There's times that our system is not able to make the advanced compounds that it wants, and if we supplement them, we can really alleviate a lot of stress, because now we've created substances that were needed to help clean up a mess, and we've also freed up resources that we were trying to figure out how to devote to getting more glutathione or whatever it is going so we can get by. Once we actually make glutathione, which is not easy, and there's a bunch of other nutrients and stuff to talk about, that's its whole own situation to get into. We're sending a type of energy over to our oxidation system where selenium and our thyroid hormone activating genes sit. So our TRX gene, or genes or enzymes, or there's like 4 of them, I forget exactly what they are taking activated thyroid hormones, which include iodine, because the 3 in T3 and the 4 in T4 are the number of iodine molecules in our thyroid hormone. Those are coming in, and selenium is activating them in our TRX gene. And this is 80% of our thyroid hormone activation, and it's happening at a very integral core area of our metabolism. I've talked about a bunch of stuff to get up to this point, and I've left out a ton of stuff. And a lot of people are not supporting the stuff that I was talking about, Over in the glutathione area, you've got B2 and B3, and then you got your molybdenum I talked about. And when it sends stuff over to Biopterin, getting PQQ is really handy. That's why Dr. Ben Lynch at Seeking Health's glutathione with cofactors has those things. One of them is selenium, because now we're actually transferring the stuff over to get our thyroid hormone activated with selenium. And as we're trying to do that, this is breaking down hydrogen peroxide, which could be generated elsewhere. Some of it was generated while we were creating our thyroid hormones. And we're turning that into water and sending the oxygen over to our iron. But if we don't have our SOD gene running well because we're low on manganese, or we have some type of bacterial infection, or our NOx gene isn't running because we're not doing anything, we're not moving, we're not breathing, we don't have muscles, like our NOx set of genes or whatever is like almost the core of our machine, but it's like it's involved in so much stuff we don't understand anything about it. But anyway, if that stuff isn't working, not only are we not able to activate these thyroid hormones, we're not sending the stuff to iron, which means our iron's not working. And we're not, copper is being used to take that oxygen over to iron. Now, of course, there's other activities that these nutrients are used in, but when we're talking about the core of our metabolism, these are very important aspects here. Copper is not working because the machine's not running, so it's not being suspended in ceruloplasm the right way. Like, we catch on to the fact that ceruloplasm is hard to say and really important, and we're like, we have to take vitamin A, and then people are like, don't do that, you get toxic. Like, dude, take a little bit of vitamin A sometimes, eat some carrots or something, but like it's not like now from today forward I take X amount of drops of vitamin A, I'm gonna fix my copper. It's just we're hyper focusing on these little pieces instead of looking at the fact that the entire machine is down and it's not using copper, doesn't want to use copper because it's got no oxygen to transfer to iron, and the iron has nowhere to go because the whole machine isn't asking for more oxygen because it's got nothing to do. It's not metabolizing. It's got low stomach acid, no B12 and protein coming in. There's no magnesium boats. Our dopamine's all jacked up because we're staring at our blue light scrolling device all day long, looking for one more hit of dopamine that never shows up because the thing's designed to make it seem like we're going to get somewhere with it. We're burning ourselves out. We're getting like 4 nutrients. We're stressing all day. We look at people wearing orange glasses and have red lights in their space as weirdos. I'm a lunatic for investing like at least $4,000 into supplements so I get my health back. Except I'm one of the few people that is talking about getting their health back, and I did it myself. So I'm not saying it's not hard or something, but apparently we can do it if we try. And if we don't look at stuff the right way, we're not even trying. So that's all I'm trying to get at. And I'm going to go now. So I hope you enjoyed, and let me know. I'm going to try to keep talking like this because for some reason I can't get the other stuff to work right, and I'm okay with this for now. I'll do this. You let me know how it works, and maybe next year I'll figure out how to make something work right for once. Okay, thanks, bye.